Hi, Miss Clayman, classmates. Welcome to Group 2 presentation of the mental health of Aboriginal children. My name is Shireen Braslan and the team members are Alex Baser, Christine Halili, Mandeep Kaur and Firdu Azim. I will be doing the introduction for our presentation. This is a letter of apology by the Government of Canada. In the 1870s, the federal government, to meet its obligation to educate Aboriginal children, played a vital role in the development and administration of these children. Two primary objectives of the residential school system were to remove and isolate children from the influence of their families, their homes, traditions, and cultures to assimilate them into the dominant culture. Indeed, some sources infamously said to kill the Indian child. Today, we recognize the policy of assimilation was wrong, caused great harm, and has no place in our country. The Government of Canada built an education system where young children were forcibly removed from their homes, inadequately fed, clothed, and housed. They were deprived of care by nurturing parents and grandparents and their communities. Tragically, some of these children died. The burden has been on your shoulders far too long. We recognize separating children from their families undermine the ability of parents to sow the seeds for generations to follow, to separate children from rich and vibrant cultures. The Government of Canada sincerely apologizes and asks for forgiveness of the Aboriginal people. June 11, 2008, the Right Honorable Stephen Harper, Prime Minister of Canada. According to the health inequalities and social determinants of Aboriginal people, it is clear that a broad range of social determinants distinctly as well as differentially influences the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions of health among Aboriginal children, youth, and adults, delivered by authors C. Redding and F. Wayne. The Aboriginal groups of Canada differs in languages, customs, circumstances, and areas of residence. They are the First Nation or Indian. Residing in Canada, there are 734,000, more than one half live in reserves spread across the country, residing in cities such as Vancouver and Winnipeg. The Inuit, there are 45,000 in Canada. The majority live in 53 communities spread across Nunavut, the Northwestern Territories, northern Quebec, and the coast of Labrador. 90% of the communities are inaccessible by roads. The Métis, children born of French traders, Cree women in the prairies, British traders, and the Dene women in the north. They do not have specific territories. More than two-thirds live in urban areas such as Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary, and Saskatoon. Métis people speak either French or English. According to the Improving Aboriginal Health by author Anne C. Macaulay, social determinants experienced by the Aboriginal people are poverty, overcrowding, and unemployment. In 2001, 41% of Aboriginal children under the age of 14 were living in poverty. 35% were raised by a single parent. One in four single mothers reported an annual income of less than $10,000. Social determinants affect the child, youth, and adults across the life course, creating creates conditions influencing mental health. For example, poverty is associated with increased substance abuse, leading to stressful family environment, diminished social support linked to depression and suicide. First Nation youths die by suicide about 5 to 6 times more than non-Aboriginal youth. The suicide rate of Inuits amongst the highest in the world, 11 times the national average. For young Inuit men, the rates of 28 times higher. In addition, 12 to 17-year-old girls reported to thinking about suicide, women are more likely compared to men to have attempted suicide. The root causes: Aboriginal children and youths living in Canada face persistent developmental and achievement gaps in comparison to their non-Aboriginal peers. They have The root causes are poverty and isolation. Communities suffer unemployment, poverty, and social disorganization, leading to lack of social norms and alienation. Individuals suffers loss of self-esteem due to denigration of culture from which they draw their language and self-definition. Families and support systems are disorganized by rapid modernization and changes in childbearing practices. Too many young people believe the only place they can live is on reserves and are discouraged from pursuing education. There is lack of adequate housing. Social racism and oppression contributes to hopelessness and isolation. These stresses, often associated with social problems, impaired mental health in collaboration with violence, family dysfunction, abuse of alcohol and drugs, and physical and sexual abuse, over time may become self-perpetuating. Mental illness co-occur with substance abuse affecting the Aboriginal child, youth.
Hi, my name is Alexis Beezer, and I'll be discussing the mental health challenges that the Aboriginal children face. Aboriginal children in Canada face many obstacles and have many factors that contribute to the mental health challenges that they face. Some startling, but not commonly talked about statistics include that only half of our Aboriginal children will complete high school. Another statistic is that twice the number of Inuit and Métis children live in poverty than do other Canadian children. Suicide rates among the Inuit are shockingly high at 6 to 11 times the Canadian average. In Nunavut particular, 27% of all deaths since 1999 have been suicides. This is one of the highest suicide rates in the world, and it continues to rise, especially in youth. Some of the serious concerns about mental illness and social ills that affect Canadian Aboriginal children include substance abuse, suicide, and violence among Aboriginal people and communities. The imposition of European culture and the loss of Indigenous culture, lifestyle, and self-determination is seen as a major cause of health and social problems in the population. Some other specific mental health challenges in the Aboriginal community include distress, suicide, schizophrenia, anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, conduct disorder, and bipolar disorder. Suicide rates for the First Nation populations are twice the national average and show no signs of decreasing. These rates differ from community to community, whereas some communities have had epidemics of suicide, while others have had few or none for several years. Young adults ages 15 to 24 represent the age group who have the highest suicide rates. Statistics also show that youth with a close family member who had committed suicide or who had a parent who attended a residential school were more likely to have experienced suicidal thoughts. Suicides and self-inflicted injuries are the leading cause of death for First Nations youth and adults. First Nations people experience major depression at twice the national average. Alcohol use is of great concern to the people of First Nations and Inuit communities. Around 75% of all residents feel alcohol use is a problem in their community. Statistics show that the residents who do drink, who live on the First Nation and Inuit reserves, drink heavily, consuming 5 or more drinks on one occasion on a weekly basis. So many factors can influence your health and mental health, and these factors are commonly known as the determinants of health, and include such things as how much money you make, how much education you have, and your relationships with your family and friends. In addition, Aboriginal peoples face a number of Indigenous-specific determinants, including colonization, racism, and political marginalization. Historical determinants such as the legacy of residential schools are believed to have shaped the mental health of Aboriginal people. A research project commissioned by the Aboriginal residential school survivors contained mental health information, with the most common mental health diagnosis being post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse disorder, and major depression. Indigenous people throughout the world believe that the health and happiness of their babies and children is the center point of health for the whole community. As sacred gifts from the spirit world, children are an integral part of the family, the community, and the culture of the people. The health of the children, therefore, is a reflection of the health of the community. Unfortunately, the large majority of Aboriginal families living in Canada do not experience the relative prosperity that is enjoyed by the general Canadian population. The health of Aboriginal babies and children living in Canada is adversely impacted by significant and persistent challenges in the areas of food security, housing, employment, education, and environmental exposures. In almost any measure of health and well-being, Aboriginal children are worse off than other Canadian children. Aboriginal communities are known to suffer from poverty and isolation, especially in the Inuit communities where access to healthcare and other necessities is limited. The lack of funding from government programs to improve the quality of life for reserve residents impact the outcome for Aboriginal people's picture of mental health and have resulted in the disruption of family networks, the forced dislocation of communities from traditional lands, and the degradation of natural resources. With a history of taking children away from their mothers and fathers and grandparents and rest of their families and putting them in residential schools, taking away their culture and forcing the Western culture onto them have impacted the Aboriginal community greatly. Since that time, Canada has realized their huge mistake and has apologized and tried to make amends, but the fracture of community stability and individual stability is apparent in how the Aboriginal community is coping. This is apparent by their mental health challenges and statistics.
My name is Firdaus Asim, and I'm the member of Group 2 of Community Mental Health Nursing. So my role is to discuss about the community mental health nurse role. As we all know about the role of community mental health nurse in our advocate, counselor, case manager, crisis worker, and collaboration, teaching like health promotion. So these are common role of community mental health nurse. So first of all, I'm going to talk about this. Nurse, she or he should know the sign of good mental health. There are few I'm going to talk, like enjoying the life. Normal people how to enjoy the life. There is the normal. And being able to form and maintain satisfying relationships. Coping the stress with positive way. Striving to realize your potential. Having a sense of personal control. Their trigger. Also, significant to know that identify the key gaps. For example, access to the transportation, lack of culturally competent care, lack of mental health services, lack of addiction services, also lack of services that promote youth wellness, lack of emergency and crisis services, lack of community capacity for health promotion and prevention. Also, maternal and child health, pre and postnatal care. So these are the identifying the key gaps. Now I'm going to talk about the interventions of mentally challenged child and youth. So the intervention for the mentally challenged child and youth are to provide emotional, spiritual, social support, assist with the communication between child, youth, and their parents, provide information about mental illness. This is very important. Plan, develop, and participate in culturally relevant health counseling and programs. Advocate for children, youths, and families for using how to use or using acute healthcare services. Use social media campaigning to reduce stigma. Target delinquent behavior. Introduce peer support. Introduce parents programs. Encourage sports. Encourage recreation activities. Also, focus on the developing coping skills. So these are my role today. I need to discuss with you. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Mandeep Kaur. My topic is promoting health. Mental illness is a lifelong journey to achieve wellness and balance of body, mind, and spirit. Mental wellness includes self-esteem, personal dignity, cultural identity, and connectedness in the presence of harmonious physical, emotional, mental, spiritual wellness. Mental health wellness must be defined in terms of the value and beliefs of the Aboriginal people. It is given in Wellness Framework 2002 in Native and Inuit Health. Now, I would like to talk about determinants of health. There are three determinants of health. First is proximal, then intermediate, then distal. Proximal determinants of health includes health conditions having direct impact on physical, emotions, and mental or spiritual health of the person. Second one is intermediate. Intermediate determinant of health, it includes origin of proximal determinants of health. Then the distal. Distal determinant of health include profound influence of health. It represents political, economical, and social context construct both proximal and distal determinants. There are many factors which contribute for the promotion of the health. First one is individual, then family, then community and society. So I would like to talk about in detail about individual first. So first one is it depends on the individual behavior, individual's experience, that how he promote his mental health. Then family also influence. It depends on the family's relationships and is it healthy relationship or unhealthy relationship. Next one is community. For example, strong families ties to the community. If the families has good environment, they tie to the community easily. Then society. Society, without any discrimination, without any stigma, it contributes for the promotion of the health. So first of all, I would like to talk in detail regarding individual. It depends on the resiliency. Resiliency means if that person has come to any problem, he has to return back to the healthy lifestyle. That is resiliency. It depends on the individual coping mechanism. It depends on the person individual coping pattern, how the person cope with that situation. Then it depends nurturing childhood experience, how the child was nurtured in his or her childhood period, and how was the physical activity during his childhood, and how is now the physical activity of the person. Then spirituality, that how spiritual the person is. Then control and self-efficacy. Second point is family. Family relationship quality and connectedness. How the family is connected to each other. How the family contribute for the individual. How family cooperate with the individual. And the parenting style. Parent style. Is it overburdened person, over disciplined parents, under disciplined parents? It depends on the parenting style. Then is family, physical and mental status. How parents are. Are they good? Are they overburdened? Are they over disciplined? So it depends on the family as well. Then substance use used by the family members. Then household compositions, household income and lack of material resources. If there's no lack of material resources, it affects the health of the mental health of the person. Then community and society. In community, how much community is involved and how much the person, the individual, has social support, family, peers, parents, teachers. Then school environment. How is the school environment of the person? Neighborhood, built environment. So all these factors influence the person. Society as well. So political development, political participation, inequality in terms of caste, creed, culture, without any discrimination. So all these factors help to promote health. Thank you.
Hi, I am Christine Halili, and I'll be discussing mental health programs and resources. Programs addressing mental health and addiction needs in First Nations and Inuit communities across Canada are Brighter Futures and Building Healthy Communities, National Aboriginal Youth Suicide Prevention Strategy, National Native Alcohol and Drug Abuse Program, and Indian Residential Schools Mental Health Support Program. For Brighter Futures, it is a community-based health promotion and ill health prevention program for First Nation and Inuit communities. It promotes health and prevent ill health through learning-related activities that strive to increase awareness, change attitude, build knowledge, and enhance skills. It has 5 components: mental health, child development, parenting, healthy babies, and injury prevention. Under mental health, the goal of this component is to promote the development of healthy communities through community-based mental health programs, services, and activities. Under child development, this aims to ensure that children receive the nurturing they need to reach their full potential, such as school breakfast programs, a math learning programs, a parent-child crafts program, and after-school programs, and school-based, such as stop bullying sessions, cultural heritage activities, and cultural heritage activities. And under parenting, the aim of this component is to promote culturally sensitive parenting skills and support group of parents of children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And under National Aboriginal Youth Suicide Prevention Strategy, Health Canada is committed to improving the health status for First Nation and Inuit people. One of its priorities is the development and implementation of a national Aboriginal youth suicide prevention strategy that aims to increase resiliency and protective factors and reduce risk factors associated with Aboriginal youth suicide. A National Indian Residential School Crisis Line has been set up to provide support for former residential school students. You can access emotional and crisis referral services by calling 24-hour National Crisis Line on 1-866-925-4419. Ontario is working with First Nation, Métis, Inuit, and urban Aboriginal people to transform child and youth services to better meet the needs of Aboriginal children and youth. In 2012, Ontario added more than 80 new mental health and addiction workers. These workers will help almost 4,000 Aboriginal children and young people get better access to culturally appropriate mental health and addiction services. And this will provide counseling, individual group therapy, crisis intervention, a range of traditional health services, including traditional teachings and ceremonies. Promoting mental health in British Columbia. So they have the Jackson Lake-based addiction and mental health recovery program. So it focuses preventing of addiction and mental health problems. The Gwen and Littell Parenting Program. This is for Aboriginal parents, caregivers living on or off the reserve. These promote healing for families to strengthen or maintain their cultural identities and provide holistic support while enhancing parenting skills. Promoting mental health in Labrador. The program runs by the Department of Health and Social Development, the National government. It provides services to 7 communities in Labrador. 5 are coastal communities accessible only by plane, boat, or snowmobile. The department operates with a holistic community health plan that has seven core, 3 of which play a direct role in promoting mental wellness. These are mental health, addiction, and child development. The mental health programs employs counselors, psychologists, and mental health workers to both community and regional levels. They offer counseling and support, crisis response, public awareness, cultural and events, family activities, and lastly, youth programming. There are other resources across Canada, and these are the following. Behavioral Health Foundation Incorporation in Winnipeg, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder Center also in Winnipeg, Mood Disorder Association, Manitoba Schizophrenia Society, Eating Disorder Self-Help, and Anxiety Disorder Association of Manitoba. Thank you. That's the end of my report.
So in conclusion, it is wide knowledge the health status of the Aboriginal people fall below that of the general Canadian population. Over the century, Aboriginal history have witnessed severe disruption of traditional social structures, customs, value system, relationship, and languages. In June 2008, Prime Minister Stephen Harper stood in the House of Commons and apologized. The residential schools left a legacy of social and mental problems that continue to exist in many communities, hence the high incidence of suicides, substance abuse, and violence. Today, we have the opportunity to effect change. In 2005, Health Canada established the First Nations and Inuit Committee. Their approach for community-driven, culturally safe programs, services for children to address mental issues, suicide rates, problems to access services, lack of transportation, as well as of awareness and understanding of the differences of culture between service providers and those receiving service, to reflect on the growing role culture plays in health and mental health, while serving to maximize community engagement, building on existing community strengths, and support continued building capacity. This is the end of Group 2 presentation. Thank you very much.